So welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. The room will probably start filling up more as we go. I want to thank you all for coming and welcome you to our year in review. Eduflow has been incredibly busy and productive, and I guess taking lead there was David, who is the CEO of Eduflow, and I'm very proud to introduce him. David, take it away.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So we'll just have a slow start because I can still see that people are joining, but we're going to talk today about Eduflow, what happened in 2022, still a little bit left, and then we'll talk obviously about the future as well, what's going to happen in 23. And I know a lot of the team is here. It won't just be me talking today, it'll also be Simon and William from the team. So let's go. And if you have any questions or comments, just pop them in the chat, and then William will interrupt me and we'll answer them as we go as well. Otherwise, we have a Q&A at the end. But let's get started. So we're going to do a welcome, which we're doing now. Then we'll talk a bit about Eduflow, who we are, 22, then 23, and then finally the Q&A part. So who's Eduflow? If you don't already know, we are a company that builds the product Eduflow, and Eduflow is this modern learning management system to run online learning experiences. And what we think is the thing we're best at is when learning is collaborative and social and active. In more practical terms, we're a small company with team members around the world, all the way from the Philippines to Texas and South Africa, headquartered in Copenhagen, Denmark, where me and the co-founders and Martin and Emil are. In terms of the company in the last year, it's been a really good year for us. We have 2.5 times as many customers now as we did a year ago. So it's been really productive in terms of growth. And some of these customers are very small, some of them are very large. And I took a few names with us here of some of the companies that started using Eduflow in the last year. And I'll just mention a few of them in these slides. So one of them is called Mesmo. Mesmo is this large software as a service company that do log analysis. And they use Eduflow to run onboarding, compliance training, all sorts of parts of their learning experiences run in Eduflow. And we recently did a case study with them that we just published. And I think for them, one of the big selling points was the simplicity of using Eduflow, that it wasn't as clunky and easy to work with. Then another company is Animals. So Animals is a content marketing agency who's using Eduflow for their entire LMS experience. They work with even larger companies like Google and Intercom, Amazon, and Zendesk. And they use Eduflow for basically all of their internal training. And then finally, I wanted to highlight Hyper Island. So Hyper Island is the modern business school, you could say. So they're trying to approach business education in a new way. And one of the things they've mentioned about Eduflow publicly is that it just allows them to build things a lot faster. And that's we're super happy to hear that we can both make learning experiences good, but also make it easy to create them. So that's a little bit about kind of the company, and then I'll give it over to Simon to talk a bit about the product and what happened there.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, so my name is Simon, everyone. Hey, I am one of the co-founders, and I work in the product team together with Melde, who's also here, and a few of the developers and designers in the room, which is nice. So I'm gonna start by talking a little bit about what we've been doing in 2022. And on a high level, we've been able to ship 40 new features and more than 500 smaller improvements. And I think that's really impressive from our small team. We're only 8 people actually working on the product. And I think these numbers, they kind of, they make me proud at least to be working with all the people that are here. So kudos to the team, and I think it shows how productive we are actually, that we're able to ship all this stuff in only a year. During the year, we've kind of focused on 3 different themes. So the first one is about improving the admin experience. And the reason that's been important to us is because when we started Eduflow, we started focusing on building out the course authoring experience and how to run and execute courses within Eduflow. But as more and more customers came on and larger and larger customers came on, we realized that we needed more tools to kind of manage and admin the admin side of things in Eduflow. So that's kind of been one of the focus areas for 2022, and it will continue to be for the next year. So building out features that makes it easier to manage your institution. The second thing is, of course, focus on the course experience. That's kind of key to what Eduflow is the course authoring experience and how to run courses. So that's of course still something that we've been very focused on improving. That is both in terms of creating new activity types that you can use to design your courses with, but also building stuff around the course experience, things like the course library, messaging where you can communicate with your learners and so on, has been a focus for us. And then finally, the third theme here is improving the overall user experience. It's one of the things that we keep hearing over and over again, is that the user experience of Eduflow is great, and it's one of the most important product traits for us. So we want to make sure that we can deliver on that promise going forward. So that's also been a key focus for us to keep improving the user experience. I want to highlight a few of the different things that we've shipped for the Eduflow product. I'm not going to go over all of them because then the Zoom would be very, very long. And it is Friday, right? We wanna end the day early. So the first thing I want to highlight here is the checklist activity, which has been requested a lot, especially for the onboarding use case. So it basically does what it says on the tin, right? It allows you to create a checklist that learners go through. They tick off items on a list, and when they've completed all the items, the activity completes. Yeah, very important for onboarding use cases that we're seeing a lot in Eduflow. And we have also done, as I mentioned before, a lot of user experience improvements. One of them being the collapsible sidebar. Oh, now I'm just seeing a big black square on my screen here. Anyways, there's supposed to be a GIF showing you that the sidebar can actually open and close now. I think that's something we wanted to add because a lot of users are using things like videos, embeds, score modules that need more room to breathe and work well. So now that you can collapse the sidebar, you can give like full focus to the media that you've been designing for your courses. Then for authoring and content, one of the most requested features that we've had was around allowing you to have more flexibility when designing the activity pages. And so we've now made it possible to add text and content both above and below score modules, embeds, and videos. And I'm just going to throw out a little teaser here. This was a small step in a bigger vision that we have for allowing more flexibility in general when it comes to designing your activity pages. We are working on a bigger project that will give you a lot more flexibility when it comes to actually designing your activity pages and combining different elements and so on. So yeah, that's going to be exciting for 2023. Also, one of the themes I mentioned is focus on improving institution admin. So as you can see here, a lot of things have been developed during the year to help with that. Here's the messaging feature highlighted, where you can set up rules for who can message whom inside the institution. That allows you to communicate more easily with your users. Other things that we've been working on is these properties that you can now add to your courses and your users. Right now, they're very basic and they don't allow you to do a lot of things, but it's sort of created the foundation for more features to come in 2023 that will be super powerful in terms of admin and creating different user flows. Then moving on to courses and their settings, we've now added the concept of course completion. So you now no longer have only activity completion, you also have course completion that you can set up rules for and define what actually is the thing that constitutes completion for each of your different courses. That's been nice to get a better overview of on a high level where learners are within your institution. Branding and white labeling, yeah, we've added loads of features here as well. You can now upload different assets that will make your institution completely white labeled. There will be essentially no mention of Eduflow. You can add your logos to the user interface and to your emails, and you can change the fav icon. You can change the title now. You can add custom code. You can add a custom domain. So a lot of features that will make it possible to make Eduflow uniquely yours, basically.
Cool. Then I'll take over for a little bit more. So one of the things that's kind of clear when building a learning product is that we're not the only learning product out there that people use. So integrating Eduflow with other team tools has been kind of essential for most of our customers, right? So it's been a big thing for us in 22, and it will probably continue to be a big theme. But this year we've added Google Meet and Microsoft Teams activities, and then we added a ton of different integrations like Slack, HubSpot, Salesforce, and many more into the institution level. Then we did a big integration with Turnitin, so you can do plagiarism detection. We updated our Zapier integration, and then we added a ton of new embed activities that makes it easy to embed things like Loom, Miro, Prezi, 7tabs, and other great tools. So there's still a lot of work to do with integrations, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Then one of the questions we get a lot on demos and so on is like, how do you see the data? How can we do reporting and analytics? We've launched a lot of stuff in this area as well in 22. So we launched our course dashboards, and then recently we added institution dashboards, which is what you can see here. So that's a way for you to see charts and visualizations of what's going on in your institution. And this includes things like an event log, new data in the different pages, API improvements, and so on. So we have a lot of data. We'll probably show you more and more over time, but it shouldn't be a worry that Eduflow doesn't have the data you need to analyze your learning experiences. And this is not as sexy, and it's hard to kind of show people, but we've done a lot of improvement updates or improvements to the performance of Eduflow. So some of the pages that were the slowest before are now up to 10 times faster. And this is something we did early in the year because we could see that as Eduflow got more and more complex and we had more and more users, things were starting to slow down a bit. So we took a big project out and spent a lot of time making Eduflow just a lot faster. And this is obviously never a thing that will stop. We'll have to keep improving the speed of Eduflow as we go and grow. So those were some of the things we've done already. And then there's also a few projects that are very close to being done. So we wanted to highlight some of the things that we know will be coming very soon because they're already in progress. One of the things that we're launching in January, I think, is a complete rethinking of the way activity rules work. So if you use Eduflow today, you know the concepts of prerequisites, deadlines, subsets, and so on. And while the idea is okay, there's a lot of things you can't do with the current setup. So soon we'll relaunch rules in a way where you can set up exactly the rules that you want for your activities. So you can say this specific activity will be complete. You can complete it if you've, in this example, completed these two other activities and between these deadlines. But you can also make much more complicated rules to say you need to have completed this thing or you have to have completed this thing unless you have this tag and something else. So you can imagine building exactly the rule system that you want, and the same will apply to visibility of activities. So something you can do in the future is to have activities appear in the course as you complete the previous activities instead of just unlocking and so on. So how people are going to use this, we don't know yet, but it's going to give you a lot more power and flexibility in how you build your Eduflow courses. The next thing we're launching is an improved ability to preview your courses. So today it's a little bit hard to make fake learners and see how your course will look to them. So we're adding this concept of test users into Eduflow natively. So you can click a button, get a bunch of test learners, and then you can switch between them to test your course. You can quickly clean it up and remove them again. And this will basically be a way to test your course in a real way, because we wanted to make sure that when we build a way to preview a course, that you actually get to experience how the course really works when you have rules and interactions between participants and so on. So we've tried to build a preview experience that can help you with previewing all of these different parts. The next thing we're launching after that, which is also really far in development already, is a new activity called the form activity. This is kind of an obvious activity for us to have. It's been requested a lot, and it's something people are already trying to do with other activities. So the form activity will allow you to make a form or survey that your learners can take, and then you can ask them questions about themselves or something like that. And this is where it gets interesting. This also works with the rules again. So you can have a survey in the beginning of the course asking people about their preferences for different things. And then you can use the rules to say, I only want to show this activity to people who answered a specific thing in my form earlier. So you can basically have the course branching depend completely on the answers to a form, for example. And then the last thing I wanted to mention here that we're launching soon is the ability to do instructor reviews in an anonymous way. So we'll make it easy to hide the names of your learners when you're giving instructor reviews to make you less biased. This is something we're developing together with a customer as well. So a smaller thing, but also really exciting to many people I know. And besides that, we've done other things as well, right? We've become so-called SOC 2 certified, which means that we've signed a bunch of paperwork and done a lot of work to make sure that our privacy and security is perfect. And we've also removed Google Analytics because it's become illegal to use that in the EU. And we've done penetration tests, automated scanning, better logging. We spend a lot of time on making Eduflow not just performant, but also secure, which is super important to our customers, of course. And now I'll give it over to William, who'll talk a bit about Eduflow Academy and what's happened there.
Cool. Thanks, David. Watching this presentation up until this point for me is really incredible because I think just to repeat what Simon said about us being such a small team and being able to do so much is incredible. And it's so cool to be using the tools that you've created in new and creative ways. And it's really cool to hear Simon, for example, say that he didn't even think that we could be using a certain tool in a certain way. And Eduflow Academy has been a really nice kind of creative outlet for us. Apologies, my dogs have decided to have this conversation now. So what I want to talk about is what Eduflow Academy has been up to and how we've been using Eduflow's awesome features and connecting with people in the community. So maybe that brings me on to the first slide, which is maybe we've been thinking about like, what is the purpose of Eduflow Academy and how can we communicate that? And for now, the statement that we are leaning on is, the Eduflow Academy is there to promote engaging in social ways of learning online. We are very averse to this kind of like more traditional way of doing courses, which is like videos and quizzes. And we believe that it can be so much more than that. And it's really cool to show other people how it can be more than that through our different courses. And our flagship course for the last year or since the end of last year has been our Instructional Design Principles course, which is a course that goes through the ADDIE process. We've had thousands of participants, and my favorite metric is that we've had over 800 testimonials written about this course. Another thing that's happened recently is that we've teamed up with the team over at Mural, and we've created a template that you can use. You can kind of, it's almost like a job aid for the course, but you can follow the ADDIE process using their Mural template. We've also, we've realized that now that cohort-based courses are really great because they're social and they engage engaging, and they contain a lot of these secret ingredients that make courses good. And along that line, we've been fortunate enough to partner with Dr. Luke Hobson, who has been running a course about collaborating with subject matter experts, and Heidi Kirby has been working on one with about scenario-based learning. And then David, if you could go on to the next slide, that'd be great. So because we've been getting so much feedback about the success of cohort-based courses, we realized that maybe we should try to explore this space more, and help other people to leverage these really great social affordances that make learning way more fun and way more effective. So what we wanted to do first, before we actually created the course, was to discover and figure out where's the gap, why are people not using collaborative learning strategies as much as we hoped. So then we created this survey, and we wrote up a report based on the findings of the survey, and we had some really interesting findings, like the fact that collaborative learning actually isn't happening as much as we'd hope, especially in the workplace. One of the big barriers is getting buy-in, and then knowing how to is also another barrier. And what we also realized was that collaborative or social learning often means different things to different people, which means we have to have at the very beginning of a course, we have to have a bit of a calibration, where we can all create a similar language in terms of cohort-based or social learning. Because if you tell say social learning to one person, they might be thinking about group learning, and then they immediately think back to a terrible group learning experience that they had in school. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be so much more. It can be so creative and so much more rewarding for the facilitators and the learners if it's done well. And that's what we've kind of baked into the new course that we're working on. So that's where, in the next slide, we talk about designing social learning experiences. And we've had 3 cohorts. We're going to open up cohort 4 in 2023. And it's been really cool because we've been using this as almost a front to get to know really awesome people who have written books in the space, and we have some really cool ideas. And we've been building this course up and adding to it and fixing it up throughout these different iterations of the cohorts. We've got videos from some people like Guy Wallace and Heidi, and a bunch of other really awesome people. So if you haven't signed up for it, I definitely recommend that you do. And then it also doesn't mean that but us focusing on these cohort-based courses means that we don't want to just ignore the self-paced courses that we already have in the academy. So we also focused on introducing a few more. So we've got a really cool course that Cassandra Nagy developed called Surviving as an L&D Micro Team. It's really good. I definitely recommend you check it out. And then we've got another one about writing discussions, questions, and then one that I'm really excited about. It's kind of a cohort-based course, but way more self-paced. With this advent of AI and generative technology, we've decided to create a community of practice that is also a course, and we'll be building on this course over time as we learn more about the topic. So 2 hours ago, David and Dr. Philippa Hardman had a conversation about AI, and we're going to take that video and put it into the course. And then the idea is that we'll just be building this really cool knowledge base and exploring these topics together. And then that brings us to the next slide, which is you've probably been on LinkedIn seeing all of these roundtable discussions and webinars. And that came from a question that we were kind of asking based on a research study we read, which was, can you run conferences differently, or can you run webinars differently? So we thought, what if we try to do a roundtable discussion or something, but then create a little mini course based on that, or just a different way to re-watch and replay it. And that's what inspired these mini courses based on workshops. So we'll host a roundtable about pedagogy and andragogy, for example, and then we'll put the recording on a course, add some discussions and some activities, and just another nice way to engage with it in a different way. And we like the idea that it increases the replay value and the social value of something that would have been forgotten on YouTube. So these mini courses will be featuring on Eduflow Academy. Yeah, and then I think that brings me to the next one. Here's a list of all the different courses we've got based on the workshops we've done so far. There are a lot more coming, so please check us out. And then, the final slide is our community, which has been led by Tara, the awesome Tara. So David and everyone, we've been putting together a newsletter. The digest has got 15,000 readers, which is amazing. This year, our LinkedIn followers or friends, I guess, have grown from 1,500 to 8,600 people. And that's also incredible. It's probably almost 8,700 by now. And then we've also been making some awesome friends on Slack. And it's really nice to see some familiar names in the chat here as well. And then the final one is what we'll be doing next. And we'll just be doubling down on what's working really well. We'll try to partner with awesome people to create more courses, and we'll be adding more cohort-based courses to our offerings. Then we'll do more round tables and more community events, kind of like this one. So please keep in touch. Check us out on Eduflow, and then I see there's links going on. That's great. You can join our Slack team and just keep in touch with what we're doing. And David, I don't know if you want to talk about the Top Learning Influencers project you're working on.
Yeah, just very briefly, right? It's a project I'm running. So I wanted to figure out who's actually been influencing people over time in the space of learning and technology and instructional design. So the way we've been doing that is I asked everybody I knew who they got inspired by. And then I reached out to everybody they were inspired by and asked them who they were inspired by. And then I kept doing that. So I built this big network of influence, who influenced who. And then based on that network, I've tried to create a list of 100 people who've been very influential to online learning. And we're starting to release the names on that list in January and February. So you can see profiles of all these incredible people who've really changed the world of online learning and offline learning as well. But onto the topic that I think people are probably most interested in. That's what I would be most interested in. What's coming next year? So we've obviously taken feedback from a lot of people over a long time. We have our website Canny, where we collect feature requests over the year. We get chat support every day from people requesting things. We do sales demos. And then we also send out a survey to some of our customers recently to ask them what do they want in Eduflow if they could pick one thing. Combining all of these things, we got this list, for example, of things that we should probably build based on our users' needs and wants. But we can't do all of it, even though we are pretty productive. So we've picked a few themes for 23 that we think are important to many people and very important to some people at least. And those I'll try to go through now. One of the big themes that we can see in these requests is around organizing and managing your course. We've heard ideas about having flows inside flows. We've heard things about drafting and publishing and so on. So one of the big projects will be to try to rethink the way you organize and manage your courses. Part of that is what Simon alluded to earlier, this idea of could you make courses much more flexible? One of the ideas is today you have these learning activities that sit after each other, but what if you could combine them all into one page? What if you could have a discussion above a video and then a form at the bottom of the activity? So this idea of placing activities more close to each other and having them more integrated is one of the big things we're considering right now. And then just a bunch of smaller things around editing and adding participants and so on. So that's going to be a big project for 23. Then this is only mentioned once here in the beginning, but events has been a big ask for many of our users, that Eduflow is really good at managing asynchronous learning, But when it comes to having learning that has a real time where something happens, or even a real place, it's not great. So, and we know this, so we're gonna try to see if we can make a much better experience of hosting events. A lot of organizations today, they have different types of learning, right? They have completely async, and then they have these like live instructor-led training. So we'll see how we approach it, but the idea is to make a way to support events in Eduflow next to your courses. Then notifications has come up a lot. Some people want more notifications, some people want fewer notifications, some people want different notifications. And one of the things we hear a lot as well is like more automated nudging and notifications to the learners. I think the general idea here is that notifications should be better. So we'll try to see how we can make them better in many ways. Can we make them more custom? Can we make them? Can we make more of them, but then maybe allow you to turn them off in a nicer way, and so on. But notifications definitely needs an overhaul. It's something we built a long time ago and haven't updated for a while. And although it is kind of boring to work on in a sense, it's also very important to the learning experience that you're notified if something happens. And then the last thing I think here on our list is the theme of automations. So right now you can do the things you need to do in Eduflow, but sometimes it'll be nice if it just did it by itself. So you could imagine saying, whenever somebody joins my institution and they have this property, I want to enroll them in these courses and send them a message telling them welcome to the institution. So the ability to set up rules like this, automations like this, to enroll people, unenroll people, add people, message people, and so on, is something we want to solve. Because right now, a lot of that is a little bit too manual for a tech company like us. So how to solve this in the right way is, of course, a big question, and we'll get inspiration from a lot of other products as well, I think. But making Eduflow more automated and easy to scale is important, not just to us, but also to our customers. And that's the last slide about this, right? Is that we don't really have a public roadmap because we want to allow ourselves to change our mind. We keep learning every day, talking to people, and we will work in these themes, and you can be pretty sure that the overarching ideas that I've mentioned here about automations, events, course management, and so on are going to happen and soon, but we don't have like a list of things we'll build in the right order, because then we can't be agile as we want to be. So keep looking out for updates from the team, and keep sending us ideas, suggestions, feedback. We love it. It's how we form these roadmaps over time. So that brings me to the last slide, the Q&A slide. So now you can stay around and ask a lot of questions. You can run away if you want, but most of the team is actually here. I think 80% of the Eduflow team is on the call. So anybody can join in as well. And yeah, thanks for showing up. And yeah, hope you have some questions in here. William, will you run the Q&A session so we have some control on it?
We'll prioritize people who have their hands up. So if you have a question, you can put up your hand and ask away, or you can just type it into the chat, and we'll get to it for you. Thanks, Jill. If you'd like to ask any questions in terms of what we're working on, or if you have a specific feature that that you're really enjoying and you want to comment on that, you can do that as well. As David said, the whole team is here, so we'd love to hear from you. This is Brett just asked, how are we going to be supporting events, so live training events. David, would you like to chat about that?
Yeah, I can try to say a few things, and then if Simon disagrees, he can jump in and overrule me. But I think it's a good question. So today, one of the things that makes Eduflow kind of special in a good and a bad way is that everything in Eduflow happens inside a course. So the way you would do an event today is you would have a course, and then you would make an activity like a Zoom activity inside the course. And that's worked well for us so far. But one of the realizations around events is that they probably have to exist outside of the context of a course to make most sense. And that's brought us down a long path of trying to think about how this affects Eduflow. So one of the ideas we have right now is to design a concept of an event that can live outside of a course. So you could have a course, or next to it, you can have an event, but making it in a way where you can also have that event inside a course. So basically trying to make a really good event activity that you can add to your course, but the event activity would be so good that it can even live on its own outside of the course. And specifically for how the event activity works, it should have all the things that it should have, right? Like RSVPs and wait lists and calendar syncing and all of that. But when we then start to think about pulling events out of the course, that got us thinking, like, maybe there's other things that could also be pulled out of the courses. What if you have a discussion activity in a course and you pulled that out? Is that a forum? So now you have a forum in your institution that's not actually in a course. What if you had content outside of a course? Is that just a knowledge base? And we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen here, right? But it led us down this avenue that we're kind of interested in exploring of what happens if we start to take activities out of their courses. But the event is the hard, obvious one that we have to start with, and that will kind of let us explore the benefits and challenges of doing that.
Cool. Brett, you're welcome to follow up with a follow-up question, or if you have a wish list item, you can write it down for us as well. Are there any other questions? Brett, I see you unmuted. Do you want to follow up?
No, I was just going to build on what David was saying. I think it's fascinating to start thinking about what happens when you pull it out of the course environment, because the course environment's a contained thing, right? Around this like one topic or series of topics, where you pull it out and all of a sudden that forum becomes something where it's like a problem solving tool, or maybe just kind of like, it starts to become something bigger than just like whatever that is contained in that little group. So that kind of got my wheels turning about like, oh, that'd be so interesting if some of these things started to kind of come out. And I don't know, it's fascinating, but looking forward to seeing how it goes.
And then I see April, you asked about, or said that you would love to see a table of contents feature. I think this is also an interesting idea. So here I'm assuming you mean within a course, right? So you could have a table of contents in a course of the stuff in the course. One of the ways we've been talking about this, at least theoretically, is that right now the content you add in a content activity is just like static content. It's lists and text and images and so on. But it might be possible to add more interactive elements in a way. So assume you're writing your content, and then instead of adding a video to your content, you could add a table of contents for the course to the content activity. And then that block will just update to always be the table of contents for the course. You could also imagine adding other things like a list of participants. So you could say, welcome to this course. In this course, you're meeting with these people, and then it shows you a list of the participants. So having different ways to think about making the content more interactive and live is something we're looking at, and maybe table of contents can be solved in that way. Alternatively, you can of course always just build it yourself by like typing out the actual table of the content in the course, but I assume that's what you want to avoid by building it more natively.
That would be amazing. And then perhaps even with like linkable, I don't know, perhaps buttons or some way for learners to navigate, and maybe perhaps a searchable feature. I don't know. This has been so fun because the conversation earlier just really is like, does it have to live within a course? I don't know. Could it live
No, it's
within?
a good question.
I don't know. It just got me thinking. You said I wanted it to live within a course, and I thought, well, would it always have to be within a course, or could it live within our institution dashboard? I don't know about that. So
Yeah,
that's a great curiosity that you just, like, do I want it to live there? Possibly within our institution. So, and thank you guys for everything you've done. All of your updates this year have just been amazing. It's like every time I find something new, I'm like, oh, how cool is this? So thank you for all of your hard work, because you've made my life so fun this year. So congratulations on everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You also mentioned course search. It's something we heard a lot, right? So you can like do the very boring thing in Edu right now of searching for the names of your course. But what people actually want often is to search within the courses. So you want to like search for sales tricks and then find the place in a specific course where that's mentioned, which is not possible right now. And there's two reasons why that's not trivial to do. One is that's a lot of data. We have to search in all of that, but other people have done that before, so we should be able to make that work as well. One of the more challenging things about searching inside the courses is that you can't assume that learners have access to all data in the course, because courses can be very branching, full of branching and subsets and rules. So you don't want people to search up content they can't actually see or not allowed to see. So we have to find a way to do it both in a performant way and in a way where we only show you content that you can actually go to. But searching within courses is kind of an obvious feature for us to figure out, and I'm sure we can get the tech team to think about all the hard problems that we have to solve on the way there.
Thank you so much. I was thinking about like with tagging, like how we tag our learners now. There could be a way to do that within our courses as we're building. Like if we wanted a keyword feature for our table of contents, if we could tag things in that way. Those were just initial thoughts that I had. And I've started, as I'm building my courses, thinking about tag words that I would want learners to be able to search for within a course. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We have another question in the chat. I guess maybe this even relates to the localization feature that we've been introducing, which is, will our customer demands vary as we start entering other markets geographically?
Yeah, in many ways, right? We are quite an international company, both in terms of employees and customers. I think being more global has obviously made language a challenge, right? So Eduflow is just now available in other languages, which is important to many people. But geographically distributed markets also means other things. So in Denmark, this isn't a big problem, but in some countries, connectivity is an issue. So people are starting to request more often like native apps or offline support and so on. And these things are much harder than translating the app to Spanish. So that's on the more long-term roadmap to figure out. But for now, we're focusing on localization in terms of language and so on. So that's out now. We don't support that many languages, but we'll add more as we go. The hard part was supporting the second language, then adding more is pretty trivial. So yeah, if there's a language you're missing, let us know and we can put a vote in for your language.
Cool. Do we have any more questions? You're welcome to put up a hand or just to type it out in the chat.
Otherwise, I just want to say, yeah, thanks for showing up, and thanks for a lot of you are customers and users of Eduflow. So yeah, just thanks a lot for using Eduflow, right? And it's been really fun to work with all of you, and we try to like get to know our customers as much as we can and listen to them and learn from them, because we might have a lot of ideas about how online learning should work, but they might also be wrong. So it's important for us to talk to the people who are actually using the products day to day for their own organizations and hear what are the things we need to make sure of to make your lives a lot easier. So yeah, that's it's very, very important for us. So thanks a lot for all of that help so far.
All right, guys, if I can just very quickly, I want to congratulate how far you've gone. David, I don't know whether you remember me. We met many years ago when only peer review existed. And
oh, that's a long time ago.
And you've been at Fordham visiting. We met at New York.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
That 8-10 years ago. And what I'm seeing, and I'm a user from day number one, you've done an amazing job. So thank you. Big fan.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I remember going to your office. That was fun.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. Welcome to the call. That's so great. Yeah, thanks everybody. It's really good to see some old familiar faces and new familiar faces. It makes everything worth it, right? So let's just stop it here, and then everybody can go to weekend, and you can always find us. We are very responsive on chat support or email, david@eduflow.com, right? You can always write me an email. And then, yeah, I hope to see you in Eduflow on chat support, even unless you're angry, then it's not so fun, but we'll take everything. So thanks a lot for showing up, and have a good weekend, and see you next year.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.